You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I'm Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
Well, today we are finally revealing the secret project that Brit and I have been working on for feels like many months, but it's actually relatively not that long. So Brit and I are collabing on a little something, and Brit, you want to take over here for a second?
Okay, so we have collaborated on a fan fiction story, and it's basically let's rewrite, the stories that really just irritated us. And and whether it was a missing scene or just the plot itself, like it needed more, depth. And with this story, and we've basically complained and criticized um these stories a lot, and it was mainly sacrifice, with
And the aftermath of sacrifice, really.
yeah, and a little bits in there of other stories like our worlds at war, a lot of influence, of course, of New 52,
Well, yeah.
and and the dynamics that we have are, based on different eras. So you have basically what we have been talking about throughout the show. We are putting it in the story form.
So it's actually kind of good that we spend so much time teasing it on this show of all shows. Now,
Exactly.
those of you that know me know that I'm the expert at making kick-ass fan edits. Now, here's what I did. I cut together a little trailer for our story, and Brit has not seen it yet. I am going to play it live on the show.
Oh wow, I'm so excited.
So I'm going to do that, and then the show will also be on the Diana Cal Instagram page, but I just wanted to play it. Okay, everyone, this is the first time I am showing this to anyone. Let me just do this so you get the full idea. So now, to be clear, a few of these scenes are different than they are in the story just because I had to pick like stuff that's like what happens in the story. So, are you ready? And
No.
let me know if you hear sound first. I just wanted to make sure the sound is coming through. All right, here we go.
Sound is good.
Okay, good. Why is it not?
They're all dead. I could have saved them.
Diana, the Justice League cannot be the world's police force.
The week's events have proven otherwise, Batman.
We're not executioners.
How dare you moralize? How many times did you catch the Joker? How many times did he escape to kill again? Do you even care?
It's a beautiful view, isn't it?
It is. We can just blend in.
Do you ever feel alone?
Diana, of course I do. But I've learned a way to deal with it.
I call you out, monster!
Together.
So that's that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, I have to compose myself.
Yeah, so that's what I put together in like a day. And again, the problem was I was like, when we get into the idea of the into the basic plot of the story, you'll see what I was talking about when I was like, I have to pick clips that are light that are basically doing the same thing, which involved picking some stuff from movies that I didn't necessarily like Wonder Woman Bloodlines, but that was the only movie where the Themyscira itself is attacked, so that's kind of important.
Yeah, it definitely got the gist of the story. It I mean, honestly, the part that really showed in majority of the story anyway is Greece. So to
Yeah.
have you know, the irony, or like this foreshadowing type thing, to have them in Greece, and for their first kiss and stuff, that pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I was
It,
like, I'm putting in Athens in here, and I was actually kind of interested. I was like, I was going through clips, and then when I heard that conversation, those two conversations from Injustice, I was like, this is perfect.
yeah, I mean, with Injustice, it's already, like I said, Bizarro Kingdom Come.
But the movie's way
And
better.
yeah, and I guess the movie is still stupid. Like with some things, like
The premise of the
Nightwing.
story is dumb. It's just those two, because those are actually from two different conversations, and I had to like edit the speech more so it sounds like they're talking about her, not about Superman. But I managed to make it so it's like I brought up about how I had Diana bring up about how you put the Joker in prison and he's broken out and killed how many people. I love the line where she goes, "Do you even care?"
Right. That the way you put that together, it really does change the perspective what was from the movie and now to the edit, a gist of our story. And that's pretty much what the story is, taking those scenes of, yeah, even animated um scenes, and giving it back, that some things have been changed and we didn't like it, so we're going to rewrite it and put it back to the way it was from the source material of the comics, or the comic story, especially like I
Exactly.
said with
Mhm.
Sacrifice. Sacrifice was it was basically a story of, I think first it started with identity crisis, didn't it? Or
Okay, so what happened is you did Identity Crisis, which that was basically the part that links to Sacrifice is that so Batman finds out that the Justice League has been mind whammying supervillains and making them more peaceful people. He finds out about this because he teleports onto the Watchtower. I think he was going to apologize for being an a-hole or something like that. He teleports and sees them doing this, and then they mind whammy Batman. And even Wally West is like, "You don't do that to Batman. Oh God." It was really good. And then from there, he made Brother Eye, which made the Omax. And this is when Max Lord showed up and killed, first, he killed Ted Cord Blue Beetle and then started the whole crisis thing.
right. So when you have the moment of crisis, of sacrifice, you have where Diana is put in the position, and this is a conversation really just within the fan base too, of not knowing like where to draw the line and how to balance her out between the ambassador of peace and the warrior. But the thing is, even what Tom King said about her being a contradiction, yeah, that makes sense. But she can still be a warrior, and it's not just fighting, like physical fight, or
To
it's
be a
not
warrior for
just,
peace.
yeah, it's not just the brutal blood, slashing and all of that. It's more than that. It's a mental thing. It's a um an emotional thing. And so that is what we're going to do within the story, is basically explore Diana's mental and emotional, you know, um, state with how does she balance out the ambassador and the warrior, and why is she the one that is able to make those decisions that, yeah, Clark and Bruce, they have killed before.
Mm-hmm.
And with Bruce, I mean, he basically want people to fear, to be fearful, scare people.
Swear to
But
me.
he doesn't want to kill because his parents, that was traumatizing as an 8-year-old. We get
Mm-hmm.
that. With Clark, I think that pretty much he's watered down from the golden age guy who no, he wouldn't just kill just because he has the powers to do so. It's just the fact that he would do it if he had no choice, and that's the
A
same
la
line
Man of
of
Steel. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the
But
same line that Diana has. So for him, but for Clark, he has to uphold like this image of the perfect Boy Scout, and he has to basically preach or whatever to, yeah, he'll punch the villain or whatever, but he also has to, like I said, preach to them too.
exactly. Now, so this whole thing started because Britt and I were having a DM conversation, and I asked, okay, to play devil's advocate, if Superman is actually in love with Wonder Woman this entire time, why doesn't he make a move? And Britt said because he doesn't think he's worthy of Diana. Now I asked, what would kind of change that mindset? And she said, one of two things. And the second option, the one that's relevant to this, was if Diana goes through a really traumatic event and he's the only one that can bring her like back from it. So that's basically from there. I said, I legit 5 minutes later, I was like, here's an idea.
Right, and this story was supposed to be like, what, probably like 2 chapters, maybe a one shot, maybe 6 chapters long max. But
Yeah,
we
that's not happening.
yeah, this is going far longer as just one story, and then we built within. We started this mid October of the conversation, and then just talking here and there for it. Then before we actually finished the first chapter, we were already talking about,
Oh, we got a
well,
lot of stuff. We basically Jonathan Hickman this whole thing where we have like an entire epic plan, which more on that in a second. But first, let's give them the premise. So the premise of the story is an all-out assault against the Justice League in the world by Lord Havok leads to the devastating destruction of Wonder Woman's home island of Themyscira, and Wonder Woman making a decision that will change the world's view of not only her but the Justice League forever. Will the world's greatest heroine spiral down to a dark path? Or can Superman be her shelter from the dangerous storm of turmoil, betrayal, and rage? Yeah, we destroyed Themyscira. And that was my idea because I'm like, that's normally like her, it's essentially her fortress of solitude a lot of the times in the comics. So I figured, let's take that away and see how she responds to that. And so the idea was, as we have indicated, because we're basing this off the sacrifice, Wonder Woman takes a life. And what this leads to is pushback from the Justice League, except for, we'll explain that in a second. But the point is, like, there's backlash from the world and some members of the Justice League, particularly a pointy-eared one. And that leads to the first thing we wanted to change is one of the problems with sacrifice is Clark's response to her killing Maxwell Lord, how he basically ignores the fact that he was mind controlled and beating up. He even beat Batman to a pulp in the early parts of Sacrifice. And I'm like, you could have killed Batman, and you're telling me you're upset that Wonder Woman, under the lasso of when she had him under the lasso of truth, and he said the only way to stop me would be to kill me, that she killed him. You're upset about that.
Yeah, that pretty much just kicked, snowball. This whole thing was, especially after we talked about it, in a previous episode, it was like when you think about all the sacrifices that Diana makes, and it's kind of like she is kicked down or looked at as just the bloodthirsty warrior. Even Mark Wade, how he talked about Kingdom Come, and he calls Diana a bloodthirsty warrior, and he says that in a recent interview, he says that Superman, he isn't supposed to fail. He, you know, um, the difference between main Superman and Kingdom Come Superman is that, and how basically main Superman is throwing a tantrum,
Mhm.
and saying that Kingdom Come Superman doesn't supposed to wear the S. He has failed and all of this, and it's kind of like that's not how you're supposed to write a character.
No,
The
because
character.
that gets bored. Because here's the thing, that's exactly why Superman was seen as a joke for so long, because people saw him as like, oh, everything goes right for him. There's no way this could be a compelling story.
Yeah, it becomes repetitive and predictable. You know what's going to happen. The main Superman, it's Clark Kent. The skies go to the Daily Planet. Something happens in Metropolis. He go fights it. He wins, and that's it. Then Lois is in the mix with her and having to save her. You know, that's it. That's all. So, but with with this story, and even with the difference between post crisis main Superman and Kingdom Come Superman. Kingdom Come Superman, he lost everything. The world turned their backs on him, and he had a reason not to be Superman anymore. Like all this time, he he did make sacrifices. He did, whatever needed to be done, and he never wanted praise or anything like that. They don't do that for praise. They do it to protect the world. Their purpose is to, make the world better. But when you have humanity turn their back, on everyone, it's kind of like, well, dang, what did I do all this for? You know, it-
Mhm.
did I just really, sacrifice my life, putting my life on the line, and then all of a sudden it means nothing. And you praise something else that's more brutal, that, is willing to basically play judge, jury, and executioner, um, without even like the challenge of it. It's like, if you don't have that option to play executioner, then yeah. Um, but
Yeah,
if you
and really, and that's the central crux of this story, is that it's the idea of ever justified. And obviously, Britt and I have been very clear that in our minds there are times when that's justified, but it's really like
exactly,
it's really like um because exactly we kind of channel the Kingdom Come reaction from the crowd, where like the public's like, she killed someone. There are some that are still on her side, obviously, but there's a lot that are like, because here's the thing, the way I at least approached it was, there were the three main characters on the Justice League are Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and they're seen as like the example. And when one of them seemingly steps out of line, that reflects on the other superheroes.
yeah. But we see that the and especially the kind of the mystery of it, that within the first chapter, and knowing the reason why is more of why Diana, did what she did. And it's like no one is trying to actually hear her out. Um, and it's very polarizing. But and we also um delve into the idea of it's okay to kill monsters. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to kill even gods, but a human that's evil, just like the Joker. Joker is human, just psychotic, and but he's killed thousands, and he continues to, you go to the asylum or whatever, gets out, kill more. You know, at some point, how do you stop that? And it is, as heroes, you do have to make that choice of, we're going to have to, be executioner. And that is what Diana did. She had that choice, especially with Max Lord Havok under under the lasso. He told her the truth about everything, the plan, and and with her trying to, she already lost her home,
Mhm.
Themyscira, because of this. But she didn't want to lose anything else. And still she put man's world first. She still did that because that was her job. And for her to do that and to make that sacrifice for the Justice League, and then for half the league to be like, well, just look at her as, you're a killer, is like, my home was destroyed. And yeah,
Exactly.
I killed the man who did it, but what's the difference between the only difference between Max Lord and the monster or the god or whatever is that, yeah, that he looks human, that he is a mortal man or whatever, and these might be magical beings, but what they did is the same exact thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like my thing, because I occasionally get into Twitter debates with people about Ben Affleck's Batman killing, and I'm like, Batman kills parademons all the time. Every version of Batman has killed parademons or monsters and everything like that. But all of a sudden, we're drawing a line at a human that's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, mm, that is the thing of the fine line type, you
Hmm.
know, um, walking. But honestly, I would say, and it's not even an anti-hero thing. It's not anything like that. It's that, again, you have to make that choice, and the heroes, in order for them to grow, and in order for the story to be more complex and compelling, you have to have those certain dilemmas, and show the heroes going through that emotion, going through that, even if it is traumatizing, and how do they, what steps do they take, and how are they able to, you know, um, emotionally and mentally heal from that, and then go on. And that's something that modern comics, or just comics in general, I think, just, they do not want to explore that. And that's part of, like you said earlier, why Superman is seen as like this, just, you know um
Dweeb, honestly.
yeah, why is he's always happy, this happy-go-lucky character. And I believe that the best kind of story for Superman and Wonder Woman is, yeah, they are optimistic characters. They are these happy-go-lucky, pure, hearts of gold characters, but put them in the reality of the harsh world, though, and to really show their changing, their purpose of change, just like what New 52 did, just like what Kingdom Come did. Kingdom Come, they struggled, they went through it, they lost everything, and then gained it back with Diana. She became, like what was said, she became a teacher. She was a student, and then she became a teacher to teach the newer, still hard-headed heroes how to be. And Clark, he became the leader that the world not only the world of heroes, but the world of man needed to do better. And then Clark and Diana got together and made a baby, which represented the new beginning of, of a change of the world. New 52, he was modern day golden age Superman, and he took down, corrupted businessman. You saw in Truth, at least with Greg Pak, how he had Clark protesting with the people out in the street and going against the cops.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had even Charles Soule, his first volume, showing that Clark and Diana as Superman and Wonder Woman are like, they're basically this celebrity couple that trying to hide, from the paparazzi, and they just want to be, left alone in a privacy sort of way, but
Mm-hmm.
also just being themselves, and have people, treat them as normal. But we saw, what was it? I think that was issue 3, I think, or issue 4. But how you had the global reaction of
Yeah,
everyone,
I think it was
and
4.
yeah, so you have this global reaction, and everyone is like, oh, well, when they have a baby, like how Lex Luthor, you think that they're going to take over the world, or they're going to have super babies flying everywhere. You have people that are for them. You have, there was I think it was Perez, but you had like um the regular bystanders, and Clark and Diana met up, and they were saying, cheering for them to kiss, things like that. You, in this type of environment, that's what you need. You need this um, balance of realism and the fantastical type thing. And that's how I see Clark and Diana's relationship. Is not so much as them being like these powerful gods, because gods among above
Man, yeah.
men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's, first of all, we have to lay foundation. It's kind of like so many people have to get beat over the head with this. In Justice League 12, they straight up say, we are not gods. But at the same time, we aren't mortal. And Clark says, we aren't like
Anyone,
even
we're alone.
anyone. We are unique. And that's how what this relationship resonates, how it resonates is so many individuals in the real world feel just like that. We are all unique. We all have that certain feeling sometimes where we are alone, or we feel like we are the only, whatever, in certain groups, you know, and you try to find this place that you can really be yourself. And even if you do find a place, like what Clark does when he goes to the Daily Planet and he tries to, just be this mild mannered reporter that wears glasses. But is he truly being himself? No. Diana,
No.
she is a free spirit, but at the same time, when she tries to be, Diana Prince, you don't really see her interact much with people.
Well, not only that, and the Charles Sewell book actually had this as well. She goes to Themyscira to like converse with her mother, who was turned to stone, but it's more like her talking out her issues. And part of the thing is, she basically says, "I don't know if I can do this secret identity thing because he wants me to go places where I cannot go." And I'm like, that actually work. Again, anyone that tells you they're very much they're the exact same, and I'm like, no, they're not. No.
Yeah, because and that's the what you're exploring with them and their differences. Because Diana, she grew up with knowing that, and I mean the fact that she has the lasso of truth on her hip, You know,
Mhm.
she is the goddess of truth. She's going to live in her truth. And she didn't quite understand the secret identity, you know, is it that I'm hiding myself? Is it that I'm ashamed of myself? No, it's like a celebrity. Celebrities go incognito. You know, they do try to wear the glasses. They try to, you know, have on sometimes weirdly enough you see a celebrity with an umbrella trying to hide their face or something like that.
Mhm.
That is the perspective of the secret identity of how it was put in the Superman and Wonder Woman book. With regular regularly how Superman is basically like they divorce him, you know, from his identity as an alien because it's somehow some, you know, to them it's bad.
Yeah, because
And
again, once he starts embracing his Kryptonian heritage and being his true self, they're like, "Oh yeah, Lois doesn't work for that."
yeah, and I've seen some call him just a battling alien or something like that, you know, with the whole xenophobic, you know, narrative. So with the story, going back to that,
Hmm.
how even fans, but the how people, you know, use that certain panel of Diana snapping Lord's neck, and it's saying that, well, she's more brutal than Clark and Bruce. No, it's not that. It's just the fact that first, Clark is so the way that they write him, he's not immune to mind control. And that is I guess one of those type of plots or whatever, those go-to plots if they don't have anything else for Superman, and so you have the being possessed or evil, you know, those kind of things. And for Clark not to see that he was possessed and the people that he hurt under, you know, that possession. And
Worse yet, he did see it because before the whole fight with Wonder Woman happens, he kind of figures it out, and Bruce is in traction because Clark beat the crap out of him.
right, but I'm saying that it's kind of like that still the narrative, the way, because it was Rucka. So
Yeah.
the way that he wrote it seemed like how it was established of if Clark knew that he hurt people, it was still the fact that he felt like out of his own guilt, he was going to put all his guilt on Diana.
Hmm.
And instead of seeing that she saved him and saved the world, it's just that, oh, you killed someone. Like, regardless of anything, you killed someone.
Regardless of the circumstances, you killed, so screw you. And that's the problem. Now, continuing on, we actually, so one of the things that Brit and I did with this is that we made sure to put a lot of Easter eggs to like DC lore, pre-post crisis, new 52, even to the modern times, as you can see with the dress image. And this is because we're honoring really their relationship across all eras of DC. Like, we're not going, screw this one era, we're going to promote only the new 52. No, because as you've said in many episodes of the show, it's existed across every single era of DC.
Right, their relationship is very multi faceted, layered, and the best way to have Clark and Diana's relationship is the slow burn with the friendship build up. And having them as best friends is just so beautiful how it can blossom to something, you know, having that foundation. It can blossom to something, you know, so much stronger. And with the story of how, you know, we set up is that everyone around them know they know that they have this certain connection, this deep bond, and they know it too. But it's that, yeah, still we're marrying all these different eras of their relationship. Pre-crisis was kind of, like it's inevitable. And, we know what the fans would like with, fans um sending in the commentaries um back then. But at the same time, of course, the status quo. You can't always go, you know, do anything serious, but we hear you, and that's that. Um, but you have post crisis where John Byrne, messed up the momentum.
Now, that's
And
an understatement.
yeah, but the fact that it was already established that they did have this attraction, and that, you know, of knowing that how it was set up is finding someone who can relate to you, even with the bait and switch of they are the way Byrne made it. It was basically Clark just thinking that he is only human, which still, what justifies being only human? Because Diana is a Earth woman, and she is, the Amazons are human women. Clark is an alien. So, what really, defines human? But when you take the human part out and just think of him as just the farm boy, the guy, he's laid back. He, even though he can crush coal and make diamonds, anything, he can be rich with his powers or something like that. But he chooses to have like this simple life, this, kind of life. But he does have this sort of extraordinary outlook though of things. And he can do certain things that's different, like crypto. He can go out to outer space with crypto. He can, take Diana when they go, to if they were to have a date, and they don't have to go to a restaurant on Earth. They can go to a restaurant on any planet, just things like that. And that's what Diana likes. She likes the simpleness. She doesn't, and that's some things that some people have to understand. If Diana really cared for the royalties and her princess title, she would have stayed on Themyscira.
Or she would have dated Bruce, and we all know that's not going to happen. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing. Is like when you think about
Or
it,
even Arthur.
even well, particularly Arthur, because he has all that. But the thing about it is, this is my problem with Wonderbat, and you and I have talked back and forth about this, is the idea that they always focus on Diana can help Bruce, she can help Bruce. What does Diana get from this?
They always say like the princess, like, because he has money. Like, she's a princess. She's,
And she doesn't care. And it's
she
the other
doesn't
thing,
care.
like, they resort her to, like, oh, it's very, like, self-fulfilling because the goth guy gets with the hot girl. And I'm like, you're denigrating Wonder Woman and resorting her only to the hot girl. Nice.
Right. Or that, I have seen where they say that Bruce is like the embodiment of like the good and bad of humanity, or he's like the definition or whatever of humanity. No.
Whoa. He's a
That he can
definition of
teach,
everything the Amazons think of humanity.
or that he can teach her how to be human, or whatever. And it's still like that
What is this
whole,
about people wanting the DC characters to be human? That's Marvel.
I think the saying goes was that Marvel is human characters trying to be gods, and then DC is gods trying to be human, which still it really does not calculate with me.
It doesn't, because here's the thing. I get what they're trying to say there, because yeah, the Justice League are basically gods. That's part of what drew me to DC, because as a fan of Greek myth. But my problem with it is that yes, they do try and like have regular lives, but they're also really gods and they embrace that part. Marvel, but see, even with Marvel, like Thor is not trying to be is not a man trying to be a god. He's already a god, just trying to, if anything, he's the god trying to be like a dude.
But it's also the fact that, like, Hal Jordan is human. He
Yeah.
just has the lantern ring. Bruce is human. He's peak human, as in, like, of course anybody that trains or whatever can uh be just that. You have like Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee type,
Yeah.
in reality. Um Basically all the Green Lanterns are, Kyle Rayner, Jessica Cruz, John Stewart, Guy Garner, they are humans. They just have a magical ring.
Or it's like Steel, John Henry Irons. He's a dude in a suit.
Yeah. Um, Barry or Wally, or Jay Garrick, with Barry, I believe it was an accident. He got struck by lightning or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how he became Flash. But he's still a human.
Yeah, if anything, the only two that are like arguably gods are Clark and Diana.
And Martian Man, well, Martian Manhunter is a Martian, but
Yeah.
Yeah, Diana, she's very much an Earth woman. A Even with Zeus being, her dad, deadbeat dad, it's still the fact of that's kind of what the gods are known for having like these bajillion of babies, with human men or women, and they have these, demigod kids. But just Percy Jackson, he is still going to school. He feels like he's just a normal kid. He is different. He feels himself as different, but at the same time, he still is seen as like this normal kid going to school until he finds out he is the son of Poseidon.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing of Diana.
And really, Superman, he's a regular guy until he finds out, actually, you're from another planet that blew up.
Yeah, but Diana is the definition of an immigrant and a foreigner, because she comes from an island still on Earth. That's like someone coming from, let's say, I don't know, Sweden, and they come to America. That's basically what Diana is doing. She's just coming from an island to America, and people do that all day long in reality. She's still, like I said, very much an Earth woman. And to think that the Amazons, they are reincarnations of women over the centuries that have been abused, that have been,
Hell,
enslaved.
Diana and Hippolyta are the reincarnations of a mother and daughter that were killed by a father in the caveman times. I believe that's the way Perez had it.
Yeah, that's the story. So, I mean, how is that to be ignored? And the only reason why it's ignored, of course, is because you have fans that are very simple-minded anyway, and they have this idea of, again, turning half the brains off, or even more than that, to have these really off-the-wall, straw man type narratives.
Well, remember, didn't CBR do an article saying that significant portion of the comic accounts on Twitter don't read the books.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
true.
And you know what? I see it every single time when they're like, Superman has never killed Zod. And I'm like, he does it all the time, actually. Or Batman has never used guns. He literally uses them all the time. The Batmobile's guns count.
Right. Let me see. There was one comment that just like had me like I had to kind of take a moment to reread it. Um, but again, shout out to Jordan J Rock, who, he's a fighter on Twitter X
Like,
for
occasionally, I'll like show up. I'll be like scrolling through my news feed. I'll see him in a debate. I'm like, Joel, Jordan's at it again. Keep at it, brother.
and the way he like is so determined to put the facts out there, is wonderful. And of course it's going to be ignored because that doesn't fit the narrative. But it was one uh comment that, let's see, can't seem to find it. Hold on.
It's all good. It's all good. But and I always hear comments all the time that are like, they're making very outlandish statements. And
Okay, I found it.
when I look up the book that they're referring to, it says the complete opposite. But anyway, so Brit, continue on.
Okay, so I don't know who this person is, but well, Jordan, he was just saying that Clark and Diana are, the immigrant and the refugee, and so someone commented back and said, LMAO, Superman is not a refugee. He's a F word alien from outer space who is powered by the sun.
Oh yeah, I saw that one, and I was like, so he's coming from a dying world to have a better life on this planet. If only there was a literal word for it. And I think Jordan even sent the very definition of refugee at him.
Yeah, he said he said look up the definition of refugee and then Superman's origin and read very, very, very closely, my guy. And I'm just like, yeah, that is just Twitter. I've never, no, I take that back. I have seen some very outlandish comments, but this just really, for now, because I know there's going to be some outlandish comments later, this really took the cake.
Yeah, it did.
Because,
It did.
I mean, to say that he's not a refugee and
I think what it comes from is that it interferes with the way they see the character. And that's my problem with a lot of comic book Twitter. They argue about that these characters are the way that they want them to be, not the way they are.
and sometimes you can't fault them because DC has the tendency to put these narratives out there. Like with post-crisis Superman, that has been basically long-term damage for the character. That the character kind of lost his, he started to lose the popularity, I think, within the 70s.
Mhm.
But
I would argue it was as soon as they did the Return of Superman.
Yeah, but the radical change for the for 86, and that's the thing, the quote unquote modern day Superman fans think that the character is only from 1986.
Yeah.
And just that, like I said, radical change of the champion of the oppressed, the one that will fight against the government, fight against corrupted policemen, you know, and even with being at the Daily Planet, it now it has turned into he has to be at the planet, and as this reporter. Honestly, they don't really show much of Clark being a reporter anymore.
No, they
So
don't. And by the way, it's that they ignore the fact that Superman is not that newspaper press is dead. I don't know. They could have changed it when they rebooted and make the Daily Planet like an online news agency, but no, they said, okay, they're still doing newspapers. I'm like, who reads a newspaper? And here's the
right,
thing. It gets into my thing on like them being nostalgic is that a lot of fans are older and don't want and always want these characters to remain the way they were when they were kids. So they don't have to admit that they're getting older.
yeah, and the thing with our story and just with how I write Clark period being at the planet is first I don't really do it too much. He might go on an interview, which is but he's more to me is always like a global, and he writes blogs, and that's something that we put into that he has his own blog,
Mm-hmm.
and he has this where he does go internationally, and then he reports back to Perry, but it's not, and yeah, it is certain parts where we might have him at the planet office, but it's
And
not
a
just like
few of
this.
and obviously some of the Daily Planet characters play a role in the story, particularly one whose last name is Lame.
Yeah, but it's only for like that section, and it's very small to where it's not a dragged on thing of just being at the Daily Planet.
Yeah, because ultimately that gets old really fast. It interferes with the way the story. And a good portion of what we wanted to do with this is make it so, like I said before, it's kind of like taking what everyone likes about DC and putting it together. So it's less like just a couple of new 52 fans talking about only the new 52. No, like we said, and many times in this series of episodes we've done, it's beyond that. It's just what New 52 did is it culminated it. But speaking of Clark and
Exactly.
Diana's relationship, what we have here, okay, so when the story starts, like Brit said, they're kind of close friends who unbeknownst to them, they act like a couple in love. So it's like kind of funny when they obviously, well, I'm not sure if this is a spoiler, but you're watching the show. We're gonna have them end up together. So spoiler, but it's like everyone's like, yeah, everyone's like, Clark and Diana go, did everyone know? And then they're like, yeah, you don't exactly hide it well.
Exactly. And
It's the ongoing joke.
there was actually an it really plays a part like pre-crisis when or the mod era of Wonder Woman when she leaves the JLA, and Barry makes a comment saying that he thought that Clark and Diana would one day get married, and things like that within certain eras where, like I said, pre-crisis was like you knew that connection, it was inevitable, and at some point it would be something that would be touched upon. Then you have post-crisis where you start them off young, and it is and it seemed like first infatuation, and then it grows into a love, but it starts out as a a friendship. It's a quote, a friendship that catches on fire,
Mm-hmm.
and is basically, you fall in love with your best friend because this person knows you, and we also will play with that within the story of certain expressions, certain um movements, that they really do.
Mannerisms.
Yeah, that they really do know each other before they don't even have to say anything, and they communicate with their eyes. They communicate with the slightest touch, and just knowing each other's likes and dislikes, especially with the state that we put, well, that Jared put Diana in.
Hey, don't put this all on me, Brit. You're an accomplice.
And how she needs to, get herself back. And no, it's not a putting Diana in this damsel in distress type thing, like how within Rebirth, how she was in a straitjacket, and the issue where she was like her mind broke, and Steve had to basically like hold her hand.
Oh God, Steve. Really?
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
Metaphorically and literally, he was holding her hand, and I just was like, no, this is
no.
And then to put her in a psych ward is just,
that is stupid. What we did, and one of the things I emphasize with the way the story is ongoing, Diana still recovers. She goes through the entire journey. Clark is there to help her along, obviously, but it's still her effort.
Yeah, and it's also that Diana's rehabilitation is the world, the culture, and especially with this, not so much as a spoiler, but being in Greece. Mm-hmm. And that culture, she feels like she's right back at home, and the people are helping her too, because she is seeing herself, when she helps around, and she doesn't feel like Wonder Woman, but when she's with the people, especially children, and that is like our number one thing, is Diana being around children and their pure hearts, and how, those smiles and just that carefree feel. That is what gives her purpose, knowing that a child is smiling. And that is what we touched upon too, very heavily within the story, is how Diana, really becomes herself again as the Wonder Woman that, she should be, with the help of children.
Exactly.
And Clark.
And the other ironic thing about it is, because Themyscira was destroyed, this is kind of a self-torture by Diana on herself, because she's in a place that's very much like her home, but it also kind of allows her to like come to terms with what happened to her home. So it's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword, really, the way we did it. And plus, with the characters that are involved in this story, it kind of makes sense. Like, obviously Superman and Wonder Woman are in the story. They're kind of important, but our main characters besides them are Donna and Kara, Bruce, and the Greek gods. Ultimately.
Yeah, and Crypto.
And Crypto, yeah. But I'm saying, of the actual human, air quote, characters, ultimately, these are like the key ones who advance the plot. You may be wondering why. Well, because part of it, going off of kind of what Brit and I said about everyone knows that they're together, is like Kara and Donna both are like, you guys are the most blind people I have ever seen. And it gets really funny, the lengths that these two go to actually get Superman and Wonder Woman to acknowledge their feelings. It's utterly hilarious the way we do it.
Yeah, and that part of having Donna and Kara, it really balances out the emotional, turmoil that we go through as well, and how to have those funny moments too.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of this isn't like an entirely like depressing story. No, it's a lot of comedy. We made sure to do that because we like wanted to make sure that, because we wanted there to be happy moments, because there would be, because everyone's a lot like a family. Dan's recovering because if everything's dark. How is she recovering? And as opposed to the Greek gods, they actually play a very vital role in this storyline for many different reasons. But we also get a redo of a certain moment from Superman and Wonder Woman that I talk about all the time, and it's my favorite. So more on that when you actually read the story. But one more thing. So I want to circle back to this. The other thing that like you said before, Britt, the thing about Greece is that it allows Diana to like reconnect to humanity in a way that's closer to home for her, because again, it is Greece, and at least our version of Diana is like Greek because, well, she's inspired by Greek gods, and we kind of place Themyscira somewhere there, so it's like it's very much of that like way of thinking.
Yeah, like you said, it's self-torture,
Yeah,
but at
it
the
really
same
is.
time, she feels that home, being at home, and how we have her is, like I said, she's trying to have like her own fortress of solitude.
Mhm.
Yeah, she can be in, London if she wanted to. She could have, with Julia and Vanessa. But though the thing is with Julia and Vanessa, they kind of after, especially with once Perez, left the book and all of that, and Vanessa is Silver Swan. They don't really have a role anymore within Diana's journey. She, it's kind of like they do drift apart to where even within this era that they don't exist anymore, which is a very,
Upsetting.
yeah, because Julian and Vanessa, I feel like Perez really made them vital
Yes, they
and
did.
very important to Diana, especially with not having Steve. And Steve will be in the story too. But
Oh, Steve, and the biggest a-hole of Wonder Woman's whole mythology, Tom Tresser, will also be there.
yeah, as a
You can tell
mention,
I really don't like Tom as a
well,
mention, but we had to acknowledge that. And so because a lot of what the story is also acknowledging the past of these characters going even into post-crisis, because again, what this is the thesis of this story is they have always been at least in love in some way.
yeah. So we had to touch upon relationships that they've been in, or that didn't obviously didn't last, and why it didn't last. And yeah, with Steve, it's showing that, and honestly, with writing Steve, it's always the um, kind of repetitive because he doesn't have a role um to really care for
He never has
unless
a role.
he's
I did a video on that. He never has a role.
I mean, even with what Tom King is trying to do is
Oh no.
have him like this. He's a military guy, and within the world's view today, and what Wonder Woman represents now, no, she should not be it's a conflict of interest, and also just a conflict of who she is and what she
Plus,
stands for.
he contributes nothing to her. And
Exactly.
the thing about it, I've always said Steve represents like a missed opportunity, because again, and I had this in my Steve Trevor video, and I'll put it somewhere up there when I upload to YouTube. The thing about him is that the way DC should be using him is kind of like their Nick Fury, where like he kind of like coordinates stuff, or they should take him, Rick Flag, Sergeant Rock, a lot of the like military dudes, and just do stories of modern warfare in the DC universe. And they did something like this in the New 52 called Men of War, where it was soldiers doing military operations, but also in a world with superheroes.
Yeah, but also, no one will actually, read a book about Steve Trevor.
No one will
So,
read. That's the secret. That's why even the Lois Lane book didn't work, because really no one cares about Lois if her name is not attached to Superman. That's why in the 60s, the series that all the close fans like to point out to me that like it was successful is called Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane.
exactly. I mean, with that whole thing, and also the promise of the book is her going into like doing shenanigans or whatever to get Superman to marry her. You don't have your title is bad, the promise is bad, so where is this great feminist independent character that they try to make Lois as when her existence, her purpose or whatever is to just be the love interest. And that's basically.
Do you remember the time they turned her into a black woman?
Yeah, and that was just totally racist. Just
yeah, it gets worse, Brit, where she wanted to like do a story inside Metropolis's Harlem, but it was called Little Africa. I'm like, it's one of those things where I'm like, who the hell greenlit this?
This is DC at its finest of just like very tone deaf and
I'm like, good Lord, I could have told you that was a horrible. And then like the cover is, oh my gosh, will Superman still love me now that I'm a black woman? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's not gonna care, but okay.
I mean, I believe that on actually it was a very yeah, he didn't answer that question actually.
Yeah, but
so
I'm just a little. But it's like going beyond that. That's basically blackface in a comic book. I'm like, what the heck is this?
It's a trip, and I mean
that was pre-crisis for you.
Yeah. So with that, some things are left, at a very distant.
To be clear, that's not canon in our universe.
Exactly.
There's no way that happened. No.
No.
We're actually trying to not piss people off with this.
I mean, the point of this story is to rewrite, the things that were very controversial.
Rewrite the bad stuff. Not like take stuff that shouldn't have happened in period and rewrite and like bring that over. That's like a portion of the character's history that is no way near worthy of us.
Yeah, it just does not exist. No. So, but with Lois, she's still the annoyance that, mean girl. I'll keep it cute. Mean girl type attitude. Like I said, very annoying. Steve, he doesn't really have a role because even going back to Tom King, it's kind of like they are trying to have him as this love interest, especially with the 2017 movie of how that did boost his character, but it was only like because of Chris Pine. Like,
and then they killed him and then brought him back and then killed him.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that pretty much in 1984, it really scorched the image of Wonder Woman. Like the goodwill that you had with Wonder Woman 17, you really scorched it, especially with the fact of her being so like dependent on this one dude that she honestly only knew for like a week, not even that much, and was trying to say like it was this full love story, this greatest love or whatever, when you don't really know the guy in the first place.
Exactly. And the thing about it is that with Tom King and like with a lot of the previews that he's putting out, I still think he could not put them together, because here's the thing, they're not together in the movie, so they're not gonna I doubt they're gonna put them back together in the comics. what'll probably happen is that they'll start to do that, and then something will happen to Steve that will make that impossible.
Yeah, because I mean, they haven't been together since
Rebirth.
about
You know what's kind of funny? I said this in my Steve Trevor video. It was the damnedest thing, because when I left was like around the time of the same of the first like volume or so of Rebirth Wonder Woman. I think it was like volume 2 had just come out, which was the origin, the Rebirth origin of Wonder Woman, but they had just gotten back together. When I came back into comics and I founded Comics League, they had just broken up. So I'm like, then when I looked at the reasoning for breaking up, it's the biggest load of BS I have ever seen. Because, okay, so Athena dies. The goddess of love dies. Okay, that's cool. That's a cool story you got going there. Then Steve Trevor goes with the death of love and everything like that. I'm not sure if I can, like, he basically says that, like, the death of Athena basically pointed out some problems in a relationship. And I can't, he basically was breaking up with her because she didn't make enough time for him. And I'm like, A, that's manipulative. B, you know what she's doing when she leaves. She's defending the entire multiverse. And C, you're a Navy SEAL. If anyone understands the whole scenario of having to deploy for a long time to protect people, it should be you, dude.
That goes into how Steve was in the Silver Age, or pretty much a whole pre-crisis. Was he wanted Diana to become like, stop being Wonder Woman and become Wonder Wife, be this housewife for him. So they pretty much still play on that, is that he is very manipulative with Diana, guilt trips her into being with him, even though, again, I really don't see the reasoning for their relationship. Even if her leaving the island with him, and that's a lot of people want to say that Perez did wrong with having him older, and
nope, he didn't. He
but
made
no.
Steve Trevor an actual character.
But it really showed that he doesn't really have a role. He can have the role of, crash landing on the island. And what I liked about New 52, when he was basically called like a ticket out. And it was for Diana to have this, he was the reason, in a sense of, well, I can like travel back with him, and to make sure that, I don't know, that he doesn't say anything, that just to know that she does have this this reason, but it's not I want to follow this guy because I'm in love with him all of a sudden or something like that. It wasn't a love thing. It was just Diana wanted to explore, and she wanted a reason to leave. And her reason was this human, wanting him to be off the island. And also the even the contest for Diana to become Wonder Woman, become the champion for Themyscira, the ambassador. That's even more of a reason. But she doesn't need Steve as her only reason, and she doesn't need to be in love with him either. The first guy you meet is very much a Disney princess, and Diana isn't a Disney princess.
That's why I think some people did dig it, because they're very much in that Disney princess's age. And I'm like, if there's one character in DC that's not a Disney princess, it's Diana. She's a princess, don't get me wrong, but she ain't that type of princess. Now, right. The other problem with it is that, again, Steve is like, the way Steve has been written from New 52 and on is extremely manipulative and very stalkery. So that's part of why I don't like him. But continuing on, the next thing I want to talk about is what's like partnering for this story. And I will say, as someone that started off just as a fan of your writing, it's a very interesting experience getting the behind the scenes look.
Yes, it's kind of like we are first of all, we are great, with
I know.
with
What's kind of funny is that the Brit will like suggest something, and then I'll go, "That's literally exactly what I was thinking right now."
exactly. It's like two minds. We are so in sync with this because it's exactly when you send something to me, it's like, oh my God, you read my mind because I think that was yesterday when we were we were talking about something and doing the dialogue for a different um part of the story, and I'm like, that's exactly what I was gonna say. And it's really fun that we can just go back and forth with dialogue, and like we said earlier, it's just a story that started off really simple to be maybe six chapters, and now it's like gone full
Oh,
blast.
it's exploded, and you'll see when we get to the end of this presentation. There's a lot we got planned, like a lot.
Right. And so with this process of between mid-October and now, just that whole, we come up with dialogue, coming up with scenes, how to structure the plot, what are we going to do next, and just that whole thing, it is so fun, and I'm going through this emotional roller coaster because at one point we are laughing about
Oh, here we
something.
go. So we were writing a certain scene, and then to not spoil what it was, Brit says, "LOL, OMG, I was just about to say that."
Yeah, and it's like but then you turn around and make me cry. So so I'm sending you the cat crying gif. Like that is the top gif that I use, and
It's
because
become her
that is
thing.
my
I'm like,
reaction.
cue cat gif in 3, 2, 1, right on time. Or it's like, I bet you that if I just sent you the edit I showed at the beginning of this episode, I would have gotten the cat gif.
You would have because I mean I mean the dialogue or the idea that you send. I'm like, okay, I have this, the notification, and I haven't opened the message just yet, but I see the first line that says idea, and then it starts off, and I'm like, oh God, am I going to laugh? Am I going to cry? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is, something romantic.
It's like when I proposed like two other like because we even have sequels planned. I proposed the sequels by saying I got a crazy idea for what could happen next. Here we go.
And honestly, okay, the sequels are so much fun. And just as how this first story is structured, where yeah, we're going to have them going through a lot of stuff, and it's going to be it's not so much as depression either, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of emotion, but you have it where to the halfway mark or so, we let up off, that emotional part, and go back to the softer, fun, the romantic type, um, having some laughs and stuff like that. But my favorite right now overall is our third one.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. We got there's a lot that's going on in that third story that is freaking nuts. We're not gonna obviously reveal what that is until we get to the third story, but it's very interesting. And yeah, so as Britt said, we actually inadvertently structure it this way, where something happens near the middle of the story that marks the turning point of everything of the character arc and everything like that. And then
And
yeah, go ahead.
in that part of this story, when you thought about that, or when you sent it to me, I'm like, oh my God, what are you having me do? And the way that you send the detail though of the certain point, and it's totally the thing is with a lot of some fan fiction writers or stories, they go way off base of the character.
Yeah.
Or
Because a lot of times what I'll do, the way I come up with these ideas is that I'm just reading comics, because one of the things, hint, hint, that members get is I give them a reading list. Here's what I'm reading in the month, and here, and then I give them a little write-up on it. So as I'm reading this stuff, and I'm like, we could do that, we could do that, we could do that, we could do that, and we could incorporate something like this. We kind of use this as a baseline, which is what I did for like a majority of like the ideas for like the sequels, some of the ideas, and on a future slide in this, I think 2 slides from now, you'll see like roughly where I got a lot of these ideas from. But a lot of it is just based upon what I have read. And then there have been plenty of things where I've been reading it and I'm like, can't do that. That's a little far. I don't think we could fit that with our story. It's just a lot of it is firmly based in what the text says, not necessarily what I wanted to say.
And even with that, that is how the writers are doing now within the comics, is that it's what they want, but not necessarily how the character should be. And that's the same thing of how Tom King is kind of doing Diana. Like,
I'm convinced Tom King has mommy issues based upon what was in that Trinity special.
Exactly. And Diana would not punch Hippolyta.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was like, what the? And I'm like, it was kind of funny. You know, I said, there it is. Because whenever Tom King does a story, it could start off really good, and then he's going to drop a Tom Kingism.
A Tom Kingism, yeah.
That's what he does. Heroes in Crisis start off that way. The only one that kind of doesn't have that is Superman, but even then, it was like that one story of Lois Lane being killed over and over again. Yeah, that's a Tom Kingism. His Batman certainly has Tom Kingisms. It's like he does these things. It like builds up. You're like, oh, this is cool. Oh,
exactly. And just for the drama, and even in our story, Diana and Hippolyta, they have their moments of arguing, and that's another part of Diana feeling her regret and sadness. But with arguing with her mother, she will do that. Anyone would argue with their mother if they have the confidence or whatever to do so. But she would never raise her hand to her mother. That's just totally disrespectful. First of all, Hippolyta will put her, will punch her back and then put her in and put her in a dungeon or something like that. And the Amazons wouldn't have it either. So that whole scene and just overall, even with the way they try to have the characters talk, or Superman is the biggest example of this, of post-crisis. It's not the character. He needed some changes. He needed to evolve with time and stuff like that. But they've totally turned the character to what they wanted and not what he actually is, his purpose.
Look at the Bendis run.
Yeah, Diana too. She, again, the whole trying to balance the ambassador of peace and the warrior. When they try to go warrior, they go way too far with her, and that is how you get the misconception of that she's just this injustice character. That even with Kingdom Come, without the context and how Mark Waid is trying to say that Kingdom Come is like, yes, it's a dark tale because of the destruction, but it has a reason. Diana, she just didn't wake up one morning and was like, oh, I'm just gonna go kill Happy and use the sword and start a war or something like that. No, it had to have build up to that certain point, and it makes sense for that version of Diana, especially because she's older. She's seen a lot of things. She
Plus,
was
she's had her royal title ripped away from her.
exactly. She's shunned and seen as a failure in the eyes of her mother and sisters. So that makes sense for her character to, yes, she will go off the rails just a little bit, but she still has that, you still have that sense of Wonder Woman though, regardless. That makes sense. So with our
It's still
story,
her, because here's the thing. What Tom King is missing is actually a statement by George Washington. I learned this when I was studying political science. He said the best way to promote peace is to prepare for war. And see, the way a lot of these writers think Wonder Woman being an agent of peace is that she's a pacifist. And no, and that was one of my problems with the way Tom Taylor talked about John Kent's Superman, because he basically said that John Kent is a better version of Superman than Clark is, because John is like a pacifist who will speak with words instead of fists. And I said, he's a crappy superhero then, because I'm sorry, so you're gonna have to raise fists eventually. Now, Clark won't go for fists immediately. He'll try and talk you down, but he was always prepared to punch you in the face if you need it.
exactly. And then John, he hugged the fastest. I don't care if it was a multiverse version of your father, he still was a dictator. Like, no, that was awful. With Clark and the way that we write both him and Diana, with Diana again, how we are exploring the ambassador and the warrior and her relationship with the world and her relationship with the people, especially in Greece, and her motivation of kids. With Clark, he is the protector, but he also, yes, he has this, he's very much New 52, the swagger, the take no nonsense, but he's,
His suit is that. In case you
yeah,
don't know what the Superman suit is, it's the new 52 suit.
and he's very much, yeah, still take no nonsense, um, a charmer for, Diana, and he's not a doormat. And you see that within the first chapter, is that he will, you know, he's not gonna bite your head off, but the way his words and the bass, trying to invoke with reading, when you try to, hear the character in your head, the bass of his voice, you know, thunders in a sense. Um, and also with Diana too. Oh, her depiction. Or I love that they given her gray eyes,
Yes.
because it represents Athena. And what happened with that was, when she uh when she was fighting Medusa and she blinded herself, and she was granted her sight back from Athena, and her eye color changed from blue to gray. And in
Plus, in
the
Crisis, they basically did that.
yeah, and in the Tomorrowverse, her eyes are gray.
Yeah.
And I just think that that is so unique for Diana. And I looked it up too, and it is a very rare eye color. So yeah, with having her with not just the regular how we see her, but like we said, the whole thing of our story is to implement these different Easter eggs or homages, or not only rewriting the bad of some stories, but also putting in what we loved too. And
And by the
so,
way, those gray eyes, they're plot points in our story. It's actually part of the story with the whole gray eye thing.
yeah, everything um that like I said, everything that we love about the characters, whether it is their personality or a certain feature that they have, we point that out in this story.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when we get to that part of Diana and how she's changed physically, and the part of even her own identity crisis. It it has the human, and especially when Clark gets involved, because he is trying to just, like you said, he, as a friend, he knows her like the back of his hand. And so the Diana that he um, uh, sees in Greece at the beginning is not the Diana that he knows. So in within that, just being friends though, whether they end up together or not, of course, like it's not a spoiler, but they end up together.
Oh man,
But
spoiler alert, Brit. What are you doing?
uh, um is that they still as friends, and that's what we really wanted to establish, because so many people think that, oh, Superman and Wonder Woman fans, they just want them to bang. They don't care about the characters. They just, why do we want them together? So what we're doing is basically even showing the importance of their friendship first. And that also goes back to even what Charles Soule said, that the world comes first.
Yeah.
So that is what this is that, yeah, regardless of anything that happens, the world and their purpose still, is the foundation of why these two bond and, can help each other and understand each other.
Exactly. So moving on now, the question that we want to answer is, what do we want the fan base to take away from the story? And it's more about like that these characters have always loved each other across all eras of DC, and that's why we brought in so many Easter eggs from all eras to show you it's not, because that's the other like piece of like misinformation that gets thrown about, is that Superman and Wonder Woman being together has only been in the New 52, and I'm like, no, it hasn't.
Right. I honestly, Twitter X they think that because the industry is so messed up is because of the New 52. Everything that they don't like, they want to blame New 52 because it's
It's
the
like the
easiest
movie
thing.
people trying to blame Snyder for everything wrong with DCEU right now.
Right. DC has, going back to the documentary, DC has had trouble forever. They were first on top of their game, but it didn't last but what, until the 50s, and then Marvel came within the 60s and kicked them down, and DC hasn't recovered since. So you had this reboot that was for the modern day and for a new generation of fans to grow up with their own version, because you had Post Crisis, but Post Crisis was basically in the toilet, and it felt like they didn't have many stories, and they were just turning their wheels and doing the same thing over and over. And that's how DC feels right now. Actually, Solicits came out yesterday, and it just seemed like there was not much, if any, talk about new books coming out. Like Not that much excitement at all.
Because here's the problem. The number one threat to a lot of these companies is apathy. And unfortunately, here's the thing: they have burnt out the fan base. Here's the thing, Britt. I don't know if you heard about this. So Marvel is currently doing an event like the Vampires Takeover. I think it's called like Blood Hunt or something like that. The main event is 45 issues.
Wow.
The main event. This is beyond Titans. 45 issues.
That is, I mean, the thing with Marvel is that they can like turn out stuff that you think will be bad, and it is bad, but at the same time, they
People still buy
always,
it.
yeah, it's like people will still support them, and people will still, they will complain, but they will hate buy. And that is something that Mark Wade Williamson and Tom King has acknowledged. Especially Mark Wade said that the industry, the market is in trouble. Williamson said that people, he noticed that people, when you write the happy stuff, there's no support. But when you write the controversial stuff, people hate buy, and that's what people want. But he's in a dilemma with himself of like, he wants to continue to write the happy stuff, but obviously he's not getting the money for it, you know.
And that's the thing. I thought that's what Twitter said the fan base wanted, because it's not working, and that's why that's my problem. Particularly when people start to say, "Oh, sales don't matter," and I'm like, "What do you mean they don't matter? DC is a business."
Yeah, to say that sales doesn't matter, but then you have like people losing their comic shops, and you see on Twitter X, the comic fan base as a whole, asking people to order from the shops, support your shops, and stuff like that. And that shows really that even digital sales aren't that good. And I believe Jim Lee said that digital sales are kind of like flat or only like 10%. He said that, I think, 2021, I would say. So, you know, and also trying to say that comics are great in sales. Well, that is really independent comics and manga. Manga is pretty much beating out, you know, Western comic media.
And we even saw this when we went to Florida MegaCon, or it was actually Florida SuperCon, where most of it is manga and anime stuff.
And you have even the bookstores, though, like
Oh,
Barnes
yeah.
and Nobles, they only have like a small section, and it's continuing to shrink while you
Yeah.
have manga
At mine,
everywhere.
there's like 2 shelves for manga, and then I mean 2 shelves for American comics, and then on the other side of the store is like manga.
Yeah,
I'm like, good God.
yeah, that is exactly how the Barnes and Noble, local Barnes and Nobles, here is that you have like this it's one or two sections of the Western, and then the whole back wall and a couple more aisles, you have tons of manga. And you do have the indie books, but no one is picking those book up. And even with DC trying to do YA novels, um it it really just, their characters are having a hard time resonating, because you are still doing the same thing regardless of the different art style. It's still the same plot. It's the same old house, it's just new paint, and the paint is dry and very boring. And when how we did this with showing Dan DiDio's his comments saying that DC is lazy and scared of
I freaking
taking
love
risks.
that.
Yeah, they are scared to take a risk, and that is the problem that they are having right now, is that they would rather have the mediocre stuff. They would rather, keep doing the same thing over and over, despite showing that you're not getting the fans that you obviously need to keep going, and you're not getting the money either. So what are you to do? You can't keep forcing the same thing and think that, oh, this might work. No, that's not how it works. Pretty soon, even the older fans that you feel like you still have are going to, go away. So with our story, what we're doing is that we're not so much as, yeah, we're writing what we want, but we're still keeping the characters in character of how
And that's a problem, and I think a stereotype with a lot of fan fiction is that a lot of writers write straight up like
their
pornographic
headcanons.
stories, like what the characters make them act wholly out of character.
Right. Even with the romance and stuff and those types of scenes, there are some things where it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I can see the character doing that. That yeah, it might work. But it can't just be something just full on without context. I can't stand it without having, the context. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's probably why I, have a hard time reaching my own set deadline, because I want to have those details. I want to have a purpose. It's kind of like, if I'm going to think of this idea and I want it to be, right for this certain story, or, what is my reason for having it? And honestly, it's kind of like, when I have that certain to lead to it, it has to make sense and it has to be worth it. So it's basically, when I'm done with the story and when I read it over and I'm seeing that, okay, when it's uploaded, this is what other people will read. Will they even care? So that is my main purpose of why I do the details that I do, why it takes so long, because I want to make sure it's not going to always be perfect. It's going to be something that I feel that's worth it for the reader.
Yeah, and that's important. It's kind of funny. When I first started reading your stuff, the minute you brought in like Psycho Pirate into a story, I'm like, okay, this person probably knows DC, because there's no way that some rando is gonna know who the hell Psycho Pirate is. So
Yeah,
I'm just
I
like,
hon-
wow.
I honestly, when I'm choosing villains and other supporting characters, it's I want to go back um to those other eras and to see that, oh, that is interesting that we don't see that in the modern time, because they felt like, oh, this character is old, it can't work or something like that, or they just pushed him to the side. But it's like, this character can be something if you just like try to put put the effort in, invest in it. Now, that don't always work with some characters like Steve Trevor, because you can put as much investment and effort you want, but he's still the same generic, manipulative, stalker, military guy. That's just what he
And
is.
Lois Lane is the stereotypical journalist who sucks.
Yeah. You know, that's just who they are. But it's some characters that you can sort of bend a little bit and make them, if they are the villain or something, you can make them even more threatening. I try to find villains that Clark and Diana can go up against together, or if one of them has to be in a sense, defeated by that certain character. It's like, how can either or help? You know, how can they go up against this certain villain? With
And that's
the
one of the things that you and I did when we were figuring out the stories. And by the way, so yeah, Max Lord is a villain in the story. Lord Havok is, but there are a few others in here that we use that yeah, you're gonna want to read to the end to get the full epic grand scale of who we bring in.
yeah, and what we also have is, like you said, of the gods too, going back to them,
Mhm.
and how we play on how manipulative they are,
Oh yeah.
and and the relationship that Diana has with them. It's very much going back and forth from New 52. It's mostly New 52, but it's also, uh, honestly, you have post-crisis versions of the gods, and you have Perez. Um, his gods were, they were a little bit more in a sense of fantasy, I would say. Um, then you had like Rucka, and his were messy,
Hmm.
and they did have that quote unquote down to earth type attitude. And then and it was the same with New 52 gods, where they really were messy. They
Hmm.
really were like, you are in a soap opera type, you know. And I love the dynamic of Apollo, Hermes, Strife,
Hmm.
of um Athena, especially Hera. Just Hera, how they've made her, not just, I thought it was just a New 52 thing, but apparently it's a thing all across, media, like um the Netflix show. Um
Oh yeah, Blood of Zeus. Yeah, she's always been like she's always been depicted in Greek myth as being vindictive toward Zeus's kids.
yeah. So with
Oh
that,
yeah, we're going with the Zeus origin, ladies and gentlemen.
and that's another thing that's very controversial, and Twitter X, or Wonder Woman fans, the clay origin, I can go either way,
Mhm.
because the way I see it is that both of them have have its advantages. With the clay origin, she is made by clay, which is very much even more so a mother-daughter bond for her and Hippolyta, is that Hippolyta molded Diana, you know, and that's literally what a mother does in reality for her child. And then being gifted by the gods, she's still gifted by the gods. Um, and you can have her with her powers being pretty much unpredictable, with the more kind of like variety of gifts.
Mhm.
With the Zeus origin, you have the you still have the mother daughter like conflict with Diana and Hippolyta, because Hippolyta had to keep her safe, and so it felt like she lied to her about her birth.
Yeah.
And um so that is still there, and she's also still protective of Diana. But you have the drama though of the gods, and especially with Zeus, and how you can write him as a deadbeat, which he is, but you can also try to give him a little bit more, especially with Diana, this different uh way when it was Finch. I think that was issue 52.
Yeah, it was around that period, but I have my trade of Finch signed by Finch.
Awesome. When Zeus came and he was very, I would say he was like fatherly to Diana for that quick moment, and that is pretty much the scene that inspires how we go about Zeus.
Yeah, and the other thing I like about that scene, I love the design of Zeus with like the dreadlocks. I thought that was a good look on Zeus. But
Yes, it
because just looks so cool.
And also, I mean, any other like depiction, it just looks like Santa Claus in a toga.
Yeah, exactly. At least this one was new and unique. So I'm like, there are times when going new and unique doesn't work, but this actually works so well. He still had the beard and everything like that, but just the dreadlocks really help like differentiate him from other versions of the character.
Right. So yeah, that whole thing just really works. And then we have I guess we have the gods just basically being their manipulative selves, drama, and like we said, within the midway point of the story. And this is the part where it really like when you had this idea, it was kind of like a, oh my God, what are we doing?
Because I figured you need to have something. First off, you need to have something that indicates the god. Actually, I don't want. I'm trying to figure out how much I can say without spoiling it. Let me put it this way: we needed this to happen.
Yeah, and it goes back to how far can you take the character, and the way that we structured the part is very much, honestly, when I read it and started kind of thinking about it myself, and like I said, you write little notes or whatever. Yeah, I did. I'm a crier, especially with emotional scenes. I cry. So I'm gonna say I cried with that part. I did because the importance of the topic, though, is really what hit, because it's so many people that go through so much in life, and that is what also this story is depicting too, is just you are very much on the edge of, what are you going to do? And you either have to pull yourself back, or you end up having someone to help you pull back. And that moment is basically our, which way is it going to go type moment.
Exactly. And that's why I said that's why it's actually good that we structured it as the halfway point. So there are two other slides that we're going to talk about. They both involve the future of our franchise, if you will. So as it applies to these two, we got interesting plans in the future. So story 2 is kind of more of a Superman focused storyline, in the same way that like story 1 was like a Wonder Woman. The way we kind of structured it is that story 1 is kind of more Wonder Woman, story 2 is more Superman, and then story 3 is more the both of them, I think.
Yeah, story 3 is definitely the both of them. Story 2 is mainly Cal's story, and again, it goes to exploring the controversial, uh things that Superman, or Twitter X Superman fans always,
Oh
complain
yeah.
about with the
Oh
character.
yeah. I was watching Man of Steel when I came up with the idea for this storyline. But the thing about it also is that it does a lot of world building to the overall universe that Brit and I made, because there were certain revelations in this that kind of change how you see like the history. And then also we bring in the children of Superman and Wonder Woman. Now they're younger than these two. I just figured that this was a good representation of the kids.
Yeah, is definitely a good representation because it's not really a spoiler, but it's a boy and a girl.
Mhm.
Now, of course, we won't reveal how old they are or anything like that, but
Mhm.
yeah, just the gender we can. And how they play a role is going to be so sweet. And
In 2 and 3, because they play a role in both.
yes, and we haven't settled down on names yet, but yeah, that will play a role too. And that's the thing, even with me with Austria in the blessing story that I have, is the detail of her name, which is Austria Kyra Kent. And Austria, of course, is really from Greek mythology, a goddess, and is basically the meaning of the stars. And you have a sun god, a moon goddess, and their little star. And then Kyra, of course, you have that is basically a play on Cal's name, you know,
Mhm.
and then Kent, of course, Kent.
And
Um,
by the way, I just got an idea for a name. I'll tell you as soon as we finish recording this.
you see what we do? You end up with
Guys, this has happened so many times where we normally go like 2 hours to 2.5 hours, sometimes to 3 hours. I will get ideas in the middle of the episode or like near the beginning, and I have to wait and keep it in my head for 2 to 3 hours so that I can tell Brit as soon as we're done here. It is the most frustrating thing in the world.
and then after that we talk for like a whole nother 30 minutes to an hour talking about other ideas, and it's kind of like it's just this full-blown like we this is how we have built this universe of talking about one idea just turns into something totally like just this whole it feels like we're running this race, or and it just keep going and going and going and going to something just so like I don't know, it's just a lot, and it's
Yeah,
so
it
much
is.
fun to get to.
So, and now story 3. Now this is kind of an interesting little cut here for those of you Final Crisis fans, and this is just hinting at something that happens in the storyline. We're not doing a crisis. I just want to be clear on that because I have no interest in rebooting a universe. But this is basically an interesting point. Now, to conclude, Superman and Wonder Woman aren't going to be the only characters we examine in this universe, because Brit and I kind of expanded, if you will, a little more. So, those of you that know me, know I'm a huge Hal Jordan Green Lantern fan, and I'm slowly turning Brit into one. So I thought, in this universe, we could also examine other couples that, first off, Brit has never written before, and that have a great story that could fit in this universe.
Yeah, when you thought about it, because within the first story, and yes, Hal and Carol, they do play a role
Yeah.
in story one. So basically story one is setting up the next two stories, and then set up also the adjacent stories as well. So you have Batcat, Aquamira, and Hal and Carol. And the way that their relationships, it seemed that they all have a connection
Hmm.
and a certain similarity, and and it's in a way where they can all help each other. Like you have um Arthur and Mira. Arthur, he's this man of two worlds, land and sea. And Clark is the same way, a man um of Earth and Krypton. And you Amira and Diana helps, them to combine their worlds to, balance themselves out. And then the same thing with Hal. He is seen supposedly as like this womanizer, as being this innocent space cop in a
Hmm.
way. Um, but he needs like this. Now it's Hal that actually needs the grounding,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say it's kind of a nice role reversal where Carol grounds him,
yeah.
pun
So
intended, because he is a test pilot. So there you go. I had to put that in there.
yeah. So you have it where he actually learns, to settle down a little bit. Um, and then you have Batcat, where especially with, and yeah, it is a little bit of Tom King influence for Batcat, and
Tom
they
King
are
and
a little,
Hush is really what influences this relationship, at least for me.
yeah, that's true. And seeing that they are toxic, but they can be toxic together. And
Hmm.
that's the thing, especially for Batman. Batman has to have that destruction. He is not the character to have so much as a happy sunshine ending. His happiness is basically accepting that he is very broken, that he
His
is
happiness is
mortal.
being Batman, which actually, say what you want about All Star Batman and Robin, that scene where he's running across rooftops going, "I love being Batman." That's actually accurate.
Yeah, even the there was a game, like an online game where you can create different elements,
Hmm.
and within the game you can make the heroes, and um with Batman you combine Batman and love is equal to Batman.
Oh yeah. I love that game when you sent me the clip of that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, we have we do have, is Batman and a bird equals to Robin, and
Hmm.
then you have Batman and Robin equals dynamic duo.
Hmm.
But what was so interesting when it first came out, and I guess it was like the testers or whatever, and saw the Twitter comment, and someone said, "I can't believe Superman plus love equals Wonder Woman," and I'm just like, what? So within like a week or two of trying to get all the elements, I mean, it was very difficult to make the heroes, but when I finally got Superman, and Superman, to create Superman, it was creating Aquaman, which is something totally I just don't want to get into,
Hmm.
and and a and an airplane or a rocket.
Hmm. Well,
And
another thing I wanted to bring up is that the reason why I picked these three, these are all my favorite DC characters. So it's kind of like a catharsis for me to be able to like do stuff with these three characters. Plus, Britt, I wanted to ask you real quick, what's it? What do you think it's going to be like expanding beyond Superman and Wonder Woman for the first time?
I did write one story with Batcat, but it wasn't really um it was okay, but I knew that I could probably do a little bit more with them. And they are always like mentioned in within the stories, but I've never
You do
really
still kind
like
of do them occasionally, and same thing with like
yeah
Arthur and Mara in a way.
like Arthur and Mira, they might give advice, especially Mira. I think of her as like Diana's best friend,
Mhm.
you know, because they're both, princesses. They understand of coming to a new world and, stuff like that. So they can definitely be best friends. Um, and that is a swipe on Flashpoint because, um,
Yeah. What Mara kind of loses her head in that story.
it's funny, yeah. Um, but that is what I really to write them for their own like solo story is going to be quite a challenge because I have to really get the voice down for the character. Um, you can do so much with the limitation of like because they're not the main point, and like I said, you have like these certain scenes, so I can write them as a little bit of dialogue here and there. I do write Batman a lot, but I don't really put Selena in too much. Um, Arthur and Mira as a couple, but I haven't explored, that relationship in depth though. Um, and then Hal and Carol is very much a new, unique couple that
Well, remember,
I haven't written at all.
and you saw it live on the show. I turned Brit into a Hal Jordan fan.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that for my own like thought was, you know, I've seen movies, I have here and there of comics, especially with Kingdom Come, but to actually just explore the the comics lore, I didn't really start that until the New 52. And the only characters really that I really went back to read, you know, um, most of, what I could was Superman and Wonder Woman because those are the characters that I really was interested in. And then, of course, I mean, Batman is thrown in your face all day long, so couldn't help but
you
to
kind of
read.
can't escape Batman.
Yeah, and then with New 52, Al Jordan, the most that really was Justice League, the Justice League book, and um Justice League War, the movie.
My
Also
favorite
Ryan,
line, my favorite line from Justice League New 52 is when Wonder Woman's fighting Green Lantern and Diana goes, "This isn't giving me any pleasure," but I'm sure you've heard that before. Like, oh God.
and and also Ryan Reynolds,
Yeah.
Green Lantern movie. So just that is all that I knew of how and yeah, he was basically like the jokester in a sense, or
He
the
is.
womanizer.
He is. The womanizer part, not so much, but the joke, when you read a little more into his backstory, you kind of get, okay, so this is why he's a jokester.
Yeah. And then Carol, the only thing that I knew is that she's the Sapphire. That's it.
Yeah.
Um
And don't worry, I'll take you under my wing to learn about lanterns. Don't worry, I got you. I have the Omnibuy right behind me.
and with them featured in the story and how you incorporated them, especially within the first chapter, was very good.
With what I
And
want to do, I would have had to bring in the lanterns in some way. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll do both of those because in a way, here's what the story does, and you kind of hinted at it. we bring in the characters that we will see more of in their own spin-off stories. It's kind of like we're actually doing comics and we're like, this is issue number 1 of a new universe.
Yeah. And that we're actually doing this, and like I said, we did not expect this story, this one story of basically just rewriting Sacrifice, to be expanded to something totally unique. It's with the first story, yeah, the basis is, like I said, rewriting what we don't like, that's controversial, um, putting in, what we do like, and creating something just totally unique and from our own perspective, and even, putting in stuff that we've talked about, throughout the show, and it's all coming together for it for this first story. And that at times we kind of work backwards, and that's the thing, is that even wherever we talk about, it goes so well that we aren't kind of like tripping ourselves over it, that we don't get confused.
Well, because also, if you know how the story is going to end, it makes it easier to write the middle part, because then you understand, okay, I have to get to this point.
Yeah, even the endings of story 1 or each individual chapter, it's still that we can write or have an idea of how we want to end the chapter or the overall story, and we are naturally getting to that point, and is really no need to change anything. We how, like I said, how we structure this and the way our minds are going back and forth with this is just so, like, wow.
Yeah, it's really nuts, and yeah, it has very much like blown me away about how much we have really expanded this, because I didn't see this coming. I just thought, because all this was because what I have done in the past with Brit and said, hey, this would be a cool idea for you to do a story about, and this would be a cool idea. I didn't expect to like create another universe, and I was like, well, okay, because there were so many. Because here's the thing. Both my and Brit's ideas were too good for us to pass up. So we're like, okay, we have to do this. That would mean expanding this. And then as soon as I'm like, well, we write these characters so well, let's expand this. And then I'll have occasions where I'm like, okay, here's story 2, here's story 3, and then here's an idea for like the Batcat story. Here's the idea for the Aquaman and Mera storyline. And then it's like, all this is in our universe. So there you go.
Right. And like you said, these ideas, just pop up with ideas, and it's like, oh, I know exactly where that can fit. This can fit, like you said, in story 1, what chapter it fits, what event, that it can come before or after. It can, well, this works better, maybe in story 2 or 3. And like I said, it just naturally comes together. And like, I really can't wait, of course, to get to story 3, because that story it's just really fun, especially with the idea of it. It's like it's never, been done before. And just and just the way that we talk about it is just so fun. So to finish chapter 1, and then we're going on to chapter 2 of story 1, and just the progression of once we finish each chapter, it's like we're closer and closer to sharing our ideas and letting people, we've been, like I said, we've been teasing this really since January. We talked about it within mid-October, December, and then building up to it, to this reveal today. And it's like, wow, we accomplished this, and now it's on to you know, us still, but also the readers now going with this the rest of the journey with us within this Brit and Jared, universe.
It's going to be pretty dope. So on that note, I think it's a good place to call it. Everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed this idea for the universe. Drop below any ideas you have, any your thoughts on the universe. If you're excited for it, hopefully you're excited for it. And make sure to, again, particularly because that really helps the algorithm. Comment, subscribe. So Britt, besides our massive tale, do you have any other stories that you want to tease?
Yeah, so because I have to balance myself out with, like I said, crybaby. So I have some very just fun one shots. Still with like I said, it's always the details that get me. That self deadline I can never meet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have, of course, Austria and her little adventures. And just really, the main story is our story. But every other story will be updated within that time. And also just continuing on with the Instagram. And also once we start uploading the story, and you will be able to see some, maybe an excerpt or so on the Instagram page.
Maybe some behind the scenes art and stuff, because that's the other thing we forgot to mention. We're involving more than just reading in this.
Yeah,
hence I played a trailer for it in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, and also with having at least some type of visual to get you in the idea of whether it's the chapter or the story, as this is what's going to that being said. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Instagram.
All of that is in the description below. But anyway, so I think that's a good place to leave it. Stay at work, everyone. And remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. See you later.